Hi, best friend book friends. Today we're going to be talking about change and how everything in life changes. And change is sometimes fun and exciting, and sometimes change is scary or upsetting. And one thing we know about change is it never ever stops. We can always expect things to change again. And so even when we're going through a difficult time, we know that it'll get better again. And so what we're going to talk today about is the concept of how everything in life grows and changes, including you. Our book today is called Is, Was, Will Be. And this one is written by me and also illustrated by Pam Fraser, like all of Best Friend books. Is, Was, Will Be. A book that explores the concepts of growth and change. This is a seedling. It once was a seed. It will be a tree growing fruit that we eat. So we see this little seedling. Once upon a time it was a seed, and then it became a big tree that's going to grow fruit that we can eat. And you know what that fruit has inside of it? Think about when you ate an apple and you got to the core. What were those little black things inside? Seeds. So it starts all over again. This is a pupa. It once was in caterpillar form, and it will be a butterfly that lights on my arm. Have you ever seen a pupa when you were out in your backyard or maybe on a walk somewhere and you saw a little, sometimes you hear them called cocoons. There's a little worm inside of there turning into a moth or a butterfly. This is a cloud. It once was just a raindrop. It will be a rainstorm that waters the farm crop. Is, was, will be. Is, was, will be. Is, was, will be is the song that never ends. This is a seashell. It was someone's home. Do you know who was living in this seashell? That is a hermit crab. He makes his home in lots of different seashells. This is a seashell. It was someone's home, and it will be part of the sand on the beach where you roam. After this crab doesn't need this home anymore, it will just be a shell on the beach, and people will walk along and walk over it and maybe even break it up and crush it because it's not needed anymore as a home for someone. It'll finally get so crushed up that it will just be part of the sand. This is some compost. I'll bet some of you who may live in the country are familiar with what compost is. Do you know what that big word means? Compost means that it's plant material that has broken down and is now going to fertilize the garden or the farm crop or the grass that you're growing in your yard. So some people put their garbage, like their leftovers and food, leftover food material, not paper, not plastic, but leftover plant material into a pile, and it all gets broken down and turns into kind of a mushy, smelly mess, but it makes your garden soil really rich to grow nice fruits and vegetables or grass in your yard. This is some compost. It was leaves back in the fall, and it will be some food to help the spring grass grow tall. Pretty nifty. Oh my goodness, what is this? That's a hard one. This is a sound wave. Do you know what a sound wave is? It was once a shout, and it will be an echo when it bounces back out. A sound wave is what happens when someone makes a sound or something makes a sound, and it travels through the air, goes into your ear, is processed by your brain, and helps you know what that sound was. So when he shouted, "Roar!" that was a sound wave. And when he did it, it echoed back off of the iceberg and came back and said, "Roar!" back to him. This is a star. It was dust up in space. Someday, a nebula will have taken its place. Did you know that even stars change? Stars don't start out as stars. They start as just dust up in space. And then they turn into a star, and someday they turn into a big, bright nebula. That is a big science word. This is an ice patch. It once was just water, and it will be again when the weather gets hotter. Have you ever noticed that in the wintertime, the puddles, sometimes it gets cold overnight, and the rain puddle on your sidewalk or on your driveway turns into slick ice when the weather gets cold? But then when it gets warm again later in the day, it turns back into a puddle. Is, was, will be. Is, was, will be. Is, was, will be is the song that never ends. This is my body. It was once just a baby, and it someday will be a grown man or a lady. I was a baby. You were too. Someday you'll be grown up like me. Someday I'll be an old lady. So will you. You might be an old lady or an old man someday. But we all started out as a baby because things change. That's just the way life is. That's the way the world works. This is our world. It has reason and rhyme. It was here long ago and will change over time. Is, was, will be. Is, was, will be. Is, was, will be is the song that never ends. So that tells me that even when things are not that great, they're going to change again. It also tells me that when things are great, I need to know that someday maybe things will be different than today, but that's okay because that's the way the world works. That's how plants grow. That's how people turn from babies into grown-ups. That's how people sometimes get sick and then get well again. That's how sometimes families change. So change is one of those things that all of us deal with. And it's okay because we can recognize that's just part of the world we live in. And even though we may not like a change that's happened right now, we can remember that it'll change back again because it always does. Things always change. So your assignment today is going to be to think about how something changes. And that's called, what we're going to talk about today is a life cycle. So we're going to talk about the life cycle of a flower. And I wonder if any of you know what a flower comes from. What do you plant in the ground to grow a flower? You can find them in the store this time of year. If you go to the hardware store or the grocery store, sometimes you see racks with packets of envelopes that have teeny tiny something in it. Do you know what it is? It's a seed. So that's where a flower comes from, is a tiny, teeny seed. Now, sometimes not much bigger than that. So we'll put the seed as the beginning of a flower's life cycle. Well, what happens next to that little seed? Do you know what it turns into? If you planted it in a styrofoam cup or in a glass cup that your mom or dad is not using right now, you could put some dirt in there, plant your seed and give it some water and some sunlight. And pretty soon, a little itty bitty tiny plant would come up. Do you know what that's called? It has the word seed in it. It's a seedling. A seedling just means a really teeny tiny baby flower. So we're gonna make a little tiny seedling. So here's our ground. Here's the dirt. And it's just an itty bitty teeny tiny seedling. And all right, remember I said seed was part of the word? But it's a seedling, which means a little tiny baby plant. And what happens after the seedling comes up out of the ground? It gets more sunlight and more water and more nutrients from the soil. Well, what happens to you when you get food and water and lots of play outside? What happens over time? You grow, right? So does a seedling. A seedling grows from an itty bitty baby plant into a plant. So here's our ground. And here's the plant that's coming up. And it's got leaves, but there's no flower yet. Maybe there's just a little bit of a bud that's kind of a prediction that there's going to be a flower there someday, but we can't see the flower yet. And I bet everybody can guess what the next phase in that life cycle is, because we've only got one more spot. What do you think that is? It's a flower. So the little plant grows a beautiful flower on top. So here's our ground again. Maybe the grass is growing taller now because it's later in the summer. Here's our stem, and there's our leaves. But now, instead of just a bud, we have a beautiful flower growing. And do you know what is in the middle of that beautiful flower? More seeds. And so then it starts another flower, or 10 flowers, or 100 flowers. So your assignment today is to think about something that you could either talk about or draw a picture of to show a life cycle of, you could maybe do a chicken, you could do a tree, you could do another kind of plant other than what I did, maybe a frog. So you could do the life cycle of any kind of a living creature that would show that things are always, always changing, including you. You could even do a life cycle of you. You might need to ask your teacher or your mom or dad or grandma and grandpa to help you if you get stuck and think, I'm not sure what the whole life cycle is of whatever I decided to explore. But that's your job today, is to think about something in all the ways it changes throughout its life and draw a life cycle of your own. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.